Hello and welcome to this week's video. This week I'm reviewing the Mutt Mongrel 250. So, to the engine, it's a 250cc, 22 horsepower I think it is, so it's not going to pull your socks off, but it's a 250. It is bags of fun. It's a nice engine, pulls well. Then the previous Mutt I rode had some real big sort of knobbly tyres. This one's got some sort of retro vintage looking tyres, but they're a lot more sort of road focused, and you can really tell the difference actually. It inspires a lot more confidence through corners. I said handling wise it's pretty good. It's never going to be a sports bike or handle like one, and that's not really the point of this bike. If you do hit bumps mid-bend, it does knock you offline slightly, but like I say, that's not really the point of this bike. This bike's more about having a hoon on a Sunday morning around country lanes. So comfort wise, I've been riding it for quite a while now, probably about an hour, and I find it super comfortable. The riding position's nice, quite upright. I've got quite long legs, so they're just sat quite nicely. It doesn't feel cramped. So yeah, the riding position's nice. The handlebars are nice and wide, so which means it's very sort of controllable. It's probably not as good for filtering as some of the other Mutt bikes. I can't help but compare it to the Mutt Fat Sabbath I rode recently too. That had, I thought they were quite wide at the time, but they're nowhere near as wide as these handlebars. So I think that would be better suited to commuting and filtering. There still isn't a big bike by any stretch, but I do think that would be better. They do a 250 version of that bike anyway. One of the great things I did discover while I was at Mutt is that basically you can effectively build your own custom bike. They do have a lot of different models, but yeah, you can basically pick and choose the different parts of the different bikes you like and effectively custom build a bike. So if you wanted this bike but with the smaller handlebars, you could, and different colour seats, all that kind of stuff, and custom painted tanks. They do absolutely everything. And while I'm talking about Mutt, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to them for lending me this bike. It's been great, and they even ordered stunning weather for me. So it's road manners in town, and slow speeds really good. So it's a very easy bike to ride, even at slow speeds. There's no hassle at all. Gear change is nice, clutch is fairly light. So because of these wide bars, then these mirrors work really well, because they're obviously quite wide, so you don't really see your shoulders and get a really good view behind. So the brakes are okay. They're not amazing, but they do the job. They've got quite a bit of feel, especially the front, but they're up to the job. It's not a heavy bike. They do have ABS on this. On the 125 Mutts, they have the linked front and back brake for the Euro 4 compliance. On these 250s, they have full proper ABS, so there's the ABS light on there. But talking of this dashboard, then this bike has actually got the old Speedo on. The new one is a lot smaller, and if you look at my 125 Mutt review, you'll see the new style dashboard. As we're talking about the 125 compared to this 250, I thought they were going to feel very similar, but wouldn't just be more powerful. and that's not the case. It feels like a very different bike. It feels more accomplished, it seems to handle better. Initially, when I was looking at the Mutts, then I thought they were just the same sort of bike but with a different engine, but there's quite a lot of differences. This has a longer wheelbase, the swing arm's different, and you can feel it through the suspension. The suspension seems to soak up the bumps better than the 125. It doesn't feel as hard, and it's definitely a more relaxed riding experience. But again, that could be just comparing a 125 with the 250. So cruising at higher speeds, then the 250 is definitely more suited to it than the 125. It feels it's not revving half as much. It feels more planted. There's no vibrations on this bike, where the 125 there were once you got up the range. Like I say, it just feels a better all-round package, but you would expect that of a 250 compared to a 125. So let's get into what I think of this bike overall. So we'll do it in my usual way. The top 3 things I really like about this bike. Number 1, as sort of anticipated, are the looks. I think it's a great looking bike. All the Mutt bikes just look fantastic. And I like the way they're all so different and you can customise them. They look like a custom home built bike. Number 2 is how easy it is to ride and how nice it actually feels. So I think someone who's just passed the test, this will be A2 friendly as well, then I think it'd be a great first bike if you want something with a bit of attitude, that looks the business, sounds nice, goes well and handles well, but is still very easy and not intimidating at all. As you can see, my feet are completely flat. It's got really low seat, so that'd sort of suit anyone really. Number 3 is how it sounds. So again, a bit like all Mutts, they have this lovely exhaust on them. Nice and loud, so for filtering, for just letting other traffic know you're there, it's a great way of doing it. It's also lots of fun. And you do occasionally get these backfires if you've just been sat on the throttle at low revs, a bit like I am now. Slow right down, on run, on overrun, you sometimes get a bang from the exhaust, which again is very childish but very fun. So as for negatives, then I'm struggling again. Everything sort of does everything it should. It looks great, it sounds great, it's easy to ride. On this compared to the 125, there's no vibrations. I say everything sort of does what it should. It seems well put together and well built. All the bits are good. Oh, I guess the only thing that I found, and again it's probably to this particular bike, is that there's a bit of playing the throttle, so it can be a bit on off. But like I say, I think that's probably just the throttle cable needs a little bit of adjustment on this particular bike. I guess something that may be viewed as a negative by some people is not just aimed at this bike, but all sort of bikes in this class, this sort of 250, 300 class, which seems pretty popular at the moment. A lot of people will say, well, if you've passed your full test, why not buy a 600 or an 800, something like that. You can do, but again, for what you actually need on the road, then this sort of 250, 300 does everything, and you're not carrying loads of weight around. In the UK at least, your road tax is cheaper and your running costs will be cheaper too. The more I ride these sort of lower capacity machines, the more I think they sort of make sense. There's not many places where you can open up a 200 brake horsepower sports bike that's either safe and certainly not legal. So if you just want the fun of a motorcycle, you've passed your tests, then these would be great. They'd be great for someone getting back into biking as well as someone that's just passed, someone getting back in that doesn't want anything too intimidating. And it does, obviously, style-wise, remind older people of the sort of 1970s sort of dirt bikes. So one question I get quite often when I do bike reviews is, would I buy a particular bike? In this case, then yes, I think I would. As most of you know, I'm building a scrambler myself, so it's going to end up something like this. Again, it's 250cc based on a old Honda. As I've been doing that nearly a year now, I know just how much time, effort and energy goes into designing and building one of these things. I think for someone who isn't going through that or doesn't want to go through that process themselves, this is absolutely perfect, because you're getting that custom motorcycle. You can even specify everything you actually want, and someone else does the hard work of building it for you. So going back to, would I buy one? Then yes, I would, if I wasn't building something very, very similar, because I think this style of bike's great fun. Sort of 250cc, low capacity, so you've got to rev it, you're quite happy, give it open throttle and just enjoy it. And this scrambler style and look is brilliant in my opinion.